Is Taiwan the top flashpoint in U.S.-China relations? Chinese leader Xi Jinping gave President Biden a stern warning over Washington's stance on the island. This as tensions build ahead of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's potential visit to Taiwan. One of the world's largest banks has reportedly set up a Communist Party branch in its Chinese operation. Is Beijing tightening its grip on Western financial institutions in China? A warning from Britain. Its national security advisor says the risk of a nuclear war with China is growing. And TikTok's Chinese parent company is spending hard on lobbying the U.S. government, shelling out a record $2 million. We look at who's on the target list. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. President Biden held a call with Chinese leader Xi Jinping on Thursday, at a time when international tensions are high. So what did they talk about? NTD's Chenny Wu gives us an overview.
President Biden and China's Xi Jinping spent more than 2 hours Thursday in discussion as the relationship between the world's two largest economies becomes increasingly strained. The more than 2-hour call marked the fifth time Biden has spoken with the communist regime leader since taking office. The last time was in March, just weeks after Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine. In the latest talks, Taiwan was once again a key point of tension.
President Biden underscored that the United States policy has not changed and that the United States strongly opposes unilateral efforts to change the status quo or undermine peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
Xi Jinping warned that the U.S. was playing with fire over Taiwan ahead of a possible trip to the island by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Beijing says it's prepared to take strong measures if Pelosi visits the island, a threat U.S. officials are taking seriously in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Another pressing issue for both leaders, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The Biden administration has pushed China to share more information, particularly on the origins of the infection.
We continue to work with our partners around the world to press China to fully share information and to cooperate with the World Health Organization.
Differing perspectives on global health, economic policy, and human rights have long tested U.S.-China relations, with Beijing's refusal to condemn Russia's invasion adding further strain. As usual, China left no doubt that it blames the U.S. for the deteriorating relationship between the two countries. Both leaders did agree to begin arrangements for a face-to-face summit, which would be their first as Xi Jinping has avoided travel during the pandemic. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
Following the call, Taiwan said it would continue to deepen its security partnership with the U.S. On the other hand, Russia says it supports Beijing's one-China policy on the issue of Taiwan. Nancy Pelosi's possible Taiwan visit is getting more attention. The Pentagon responded to Beijing's calls not to go through with the trip by boosting military presence. Meanwhile, some in Taiwan are welcoming the U.S.'s response. Let's take a closer look.
Talk about my travel.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is scheduled to start her Asia tour on Friday, though for now it's unclear whether she will visit Taiwan. The Speaker's potential visit to the island has been making headlines. If Pelosi goes through with the trip, she would become the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Taiwan in the last 25 years. On the other hand, China's foreign ministry spokesman has warned a visit from Pelosi would be a red line for Beijing and would trigger what he called serious consequences from the Chinese regime. Earlier this week, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said he had spoken with Pelosi and gave his assessment of the security situation.
I remain concerned, and you've heard me say this before, about the aggressiveness of the PRC and the kinds of things that we've been seeing in the region lately. And so I think we have to be vigilant, throughout, even as we're operating in that region.
Austin declined to comment on the specific security requirements that Pelosi's planned trip would require. After news broke about Pelosi's possible visit, Beijing warned Tuesday that the Chinese military will take strong measures if the trip goes ahead. What's more, a state-backed newspaper threatened that, in case of a maritime conflict between the U.S. and China, the U.S. carrier fleet would be, quote, wiped out. China claims the island as its own territory, though the Chinese Communist Party has never ruled Taiwan. Because of China's stance, visits by U.S. officials to Taiwan have become a frequent source of tension between Beijing and Washington. The U.S. does not have official diplomatic ties with Taiwan, but is bound by law to provide the island with the means to defend itself. Some Taiwan citizens seem to be shrugging off recent warnings from Beijing.
China has actually issued similar statements in the past whenever there is a similar situation. So this time around, I am quite at ease because I think that this is mostly verbal threats and intimidation.
I think that the whole global situation is changing and becoming more tense. But to be honest, I am already used to China issuing such statements. So I am not overly nervous, but think that there could be some new developments.
As for Washington's promised military movements, a U.S. aircraft carrier and strike group has entered the South China Sea, heading toward Taiwan. The U.S. 7th Fleet Commander confirmed it's a scheduled operation.
For many, the Chinese Communist Party is an issue on the other side of the globe. But new reports say Beijing's influence might hit closer to home than Americans realize. NDT's Chenny Wu has the story.
The Chinese Communist regime seems to have upped its game on foreign companies operating in China. According to a Financial Times report, a Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, committee has been established inside the largest bank in Europe, HSBC. A CCP committee is required by law for most Chinese companies, but the rule isn't strictly enforced among foreign finance groups. HSBC would be the first foreign bank to install a Chinese Communist Party branch. The move prompts concerns over Beijing's growing involvement in Western firms. And HSBC's size and influence could pressure other foreign banks in China to follow suit. Senator Marco Rubio wrote in a letter to the Wall Street Journal that financial companies like BlackRock, Citigroup, and Goldman Sachs are among the most vulnerable. HSBC did not confirm whether a Communist Party branch had been established, adding that even if there was such a branch, it would have no influence on how its business runs. But is it really possible for a communist branch not to affect a company's decision-making? A CCP committee is typically a group of 3 or more employees who are also members of the Chinese Communist Party. The committee serves as both a workers' union and the means to install a Communist Party member within a company's top ranks, like a management or director role. Chinese state regulators made establishment of a party cell mandatory in 2018 for any company listed on domestic stock exchanges. They mandated that fund management companies are to carry out party activities and provide the necessary conditions in accordance with the constitution of the Chinese Communist Party. Senator Rubio said that kind of infiltration poses a real threat and could neutralize opposition to the CCP. Companies are currently not required to disclose the presence of CCP cells and whether they influence corporate decisions. Chenny Wu, NTD News.
UK Foreign Secretary and candidate for Prime Minister Liz Truss is promising stronger ties among Commonwealth nations. That's to face China's threats and, in her words, growing malign influence. The plan lies in the potential launch of a new Commonwealth deal if Truss becomes British Prime Minister in September. The Commonwealth is short for the Commonwealth of Nations. It's made up of 56 member states, the majority of which are former British Empire territories. Truss's plan would aim to speed up economic and trade cooperations with Commonwealth partners. She said the plan must provide clear benefits for staying a member of the Commonwealth and, quote, offer nations a clear alternative to growing malign influence from Beijing. A campaign spokesperson said Truss believes the Commonwealth is vital to countering Beijing's influence, saying she believes trade and investment has a key role to play in stopping the growing Chinese influence, where Beijing has used investment as a part of its Belt and Road Initiative. The UK's National Security Advisor said the risk of an accidental nuclear war with China is growing. That's as the regime expands its nuclear arsenal despite international arms control mechanisms. Let's zoom in.
In a virtual speech in Washington, D.C., Sir Stephen Lovegrove warned of the pace and scale with which China is expanding its nuclear and conventional arsenals. He said the world is entering a, quote, dangerous new age of proliferation. In particular, he said the UK has clear concerns about China's nuclear modernization program. Sir Stephen warned that the risk of nuclear conflict could be greater today than at the height of the Cold War. He said during the Cold War, the West had a series of negotiations and dialogues with the USSR, adding that this gave us both a higher level of confidence that we would not miscalculate our way into nuclear war. Today, we do not have the same foundations with others who may threaten us in the future, particularly with China.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for more than a year. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Over $2 million. That's the amount of money TikTok's Chinese parent company spent on lobbying the U.S. government. We look at the list of targets. And how should the U.S. treat Beijing's threat over House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's potential trip to Taiwan? And what's at stake if Pelosi skips the visit? We hear from David Stilwell, former Assistant Secretary of State, for details. The full episode is available on our partner platform, Bok TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.
Presenting the heritage of traditional Chinese martial arts, promoting martial ethics, and reviving the true tradition. The 2022 NTD International Traditional Chinese Martial Arts Competition preliminaries will be held in New York and Taiwan. On August 28th, the finals will be broadcast live online worldwide. Registration hotline 1-888-477-9228. For more information, please visit martialarts.ntdtv.com.